Good afternoon, students. I wanted to talk a little bit about testing the Piper Platter. So writing your unit test for that. So I've had a number of questions, and also in a lot of the last milestones that were turned in, they weren't being accurately tested or tested as it should be. So let's talk a little bit about what we need to be testing in the Piper Platter. And if we go look at our Piper Platter, or think about our Piper Platter, once we implement that property changed event handler, we know that anytime a property of this class changes, we need to update and signal that that change is happening. Now, I'm using the composition pattern, which means that I'm creating a fried pie for the left pie and the right pie, and a left ice cream and a right ice cream that exist as long as the platter exists. So we're never swapping those out. There's no setters, they're get only. So we don't need to notify when they change. The name also, because this is just a static string, it's never going to change. It's always going to be Piper Platter, so that's fine too. But the calories are a derived property. So this can change if the left pie's calories change, or if the right pie's calories change, or the left ice cream calories change, or the right ice cream calories change. And then the price is also unchanging. It's always going to be 12. So the only thing we have to worry about notifying here is the calories. But when they change, we need to notify of that. And those will change when the calories of one of those classes it's composed from. So one of those composing objects, the left pie, the right pie, the left ice cream, or the right ice cream. One of those changes its calories, so does the platter. And your unit test for that is pretty straightforward. We're just going to write one to change the calories of, say, the left pie. And if we think about our left pie, we know the calories change when the flavor changes. So we're going to change the flavor. That's going to trigger the process. So we're listening for the calories event on the platter when we change the platter's left pie's flavor, and the same thing for the right pie and for the left ice cream and the right ice cream. Now, if I run my tests, these are actually all going to fail. And the reason they fail is I haven't hooked up communication. I haven't actually done anything to address that change. So how can we address that change? How can we make sure that the fried platter, or the Piper Platter, knows when these guys are changing? Now, one of the ways we could do this is we could go back to our fried pie and add a reference to the platter it belongs to, maybe pass that in through a constructor, and then do some message passing. That's going to end up being a lot of work, and because our fried pie can exist on its own, it won't always have that platter. We also have to be very careful about checking to see, is there actually a parent platter, or am I just on my own as a fried pie, and addressing all of those different challenges. That's a lot of work, and it's a fairly fragile way of doing things. Now, we've already implemented this property changed event, and its whole purpose is to tell us when a property changes. And that's really what we're curious about here. We need to know when the fried pie's calories change, because that means our Piper Platter's calories are also changing. So the easiest and most logical way to do this is listen for that event. So let's go back to our Piper Platter, and let's write an event listener. So this is going to be a private method. I'm going to call it handle platter item calories changing, or changed. And this is going to be listening to the property changed event. So it's a listener. It's going to have two arguments, like they all do, object sender, and the second argument is going to be the event args. Since it's a property changed event, it's going to be a property changed event args. On child object is going to be left pie, right pie, left ice cream, right ice cream. I'm going to change this from child to composing, because that's really what we're doing. We're doing a composition relationship, and the event args describing changing property. All right. Now we're going to receive one of these events basically any time the property change gets fired. We actually do that 3 times when we change the flavor. We do it for the flavor property, we do it for the calories property, we do it for the name property. Now we don't want to fire off for every time something changes. We only care about the calories, so we need to discriminate here and figure out, is it the calories that's changing? And that property changed event, when we create it in the fried pie, notice that we're actually passing in a string. That's what name of does. It takes the property and turns it into a string representation that says what that property is. So we can just use that string here. That's e.property_name. It's going to be the name of the property that's changing. We can check, is that calories? And I'm going to go ahead and use name of, so we can use the static type checker to make sure that we didn't misspell calories. That is just a nice little thing to help prevent errors, because if we put the wrong string in there, it won't complain, but it also won't actually work the way we want it to. Okay, so now that we have our calories, we know if we get inside this if statement that the calories have changed. So because the calories of one of the composing objects, the left pie, the right pie, or the left ice cream and the right ice cream has changed, we also need to change this Piper Platters, notify that it's changing. So we'll do that with a property change, just like we did in the other classes, invocation. This time it's this object, and a new property changed event args, and name of calories. And instead of creating this new one, we could also just pass in this event args, because it already is an event args for calories, and the only thing that's unique about a property changed event args is what string is passed through there. So it is possible to go ahead and use one that already exists if you have one on hand, but it's a little clearer that if we actually construct it again and say, hey, this is calories that's changing. So this creates our listener, but it's still not hooked up. We want to hook it up to this left ice cream, this right ice cream, this right pie, this left pie. Now you might think about doing it through initialization syntax, where we actually go in and say property changed, but you can't actually do an event listener that way, because you're not allowed to do it A in this location and B it's not a property, so you can't actually use property initialization syntax. So the other place we could potentially hook it up is in the constructor. Now we don't have a constructor, at least I don't, so I'm going to have to write a constructor. Now because I didn't have a constructor, the compiler was giving me a default parameterless constructor. So I also want my constructor to be parameterless, so I just can seamlessly replace that one and my code will still work without needing to change anything else. So we're going to make a parameterless constructor, and then in that constructor we're going to hook up those event handlers. So left pie's property changed event, we're going to attach this handle platter item calories changed. We'll do the same for the right pie. And for the left ice cream. And the right ice cream. And of course we have to add our summary. And if we were to rerun our tests now, notice that they all pass, because now when we change that child object or that composing object to the left pie, it tells the platter, hey, I just changed, and the platter says, okay, I'm going to say my calories are changing. So we can pass that forward, and this helps show some of the real power of events. It's another form of message passing, like methods, but it is very flexible in that you can attach anywhere, and you don't really care who's attaching from the class with the event handler, so you can attach a lot of different ways, and this is a very handy pattern to know about, and it's actually one you need to know about for milestone 7 as well, because when you create your order has a subtotal which depends on the price of all objects in the order, and as you add new objects to that order, that price is going to change. And when you change the objects in that order, so you customize, maybe we start out with a Piper Platter, and then they say, oh, actually I want, or not the Piper Platter, the Popper Platter, and they say, oh, I want that to be large. You go change it to be large, now your price is different, so therefore your subtotal needs to be different, and therefore your total and taxes also need to be different. So you'll need to use the same pattern again. So it's a good one to recognize and start thinking in terms of how can I utilize events to pass information around, just like I've been using methods in the past. Alright, that's all I have for you today. Hopefully you find that helpful, and if you have any questions, be sure to put them in the Discord or bring them with you to class.